Hello and welcome to the DTC Podcast. I'm Eric Dyck. Today we're joined by Juliana Casale, the brains behind the refreshing sparkling water brand Balloon. Not only is Juliana a regular contributor to our DTC Newsletter, but she's also eager to share the wisdom she's garnered from her CPG startup journey. Here's a taste for what's in store. Starting with pre-orders, discover Juliana's approach to gauge real market interest while minimizing risks. The power of transparency, learn how Juliana's open sharing of her brand building journey has not only caught attention, but also earned her invaluable advice and mentors. The quest for genuine feedback, dive into Juliana's strategy for ensuring the feedback she receives is both authentic and constructive and not just based on her personal tastes. So whether you're a beverage aficionado or just curious about the startup world, join us for a deep dive into the creation of Balloon and the nuances of launching a new product in the beverage landscape. Cheers. On with the show.
If there's certain people you want to get in front of, one of my hacks, and it's not really a hack because you have to put in the work, is attending webinars that they're part of and then follow up immediately after and say like, hey, caught you on this thing, really love what you said about this thing. Like, you actually do have to listen and pay attention and take notes, but just follow up and say like, by the way, I am doing this, like would love your thoughts, or like would love for you to try it or whatever. Like, I think this would work with influencers too, is just like follow them, comment on what they're doing, engage with them, and then just kind of drop a little like, oh, like, by the way. And then people just love that you're paying attention and have thoughts on what they're doing and are supporting them. And so then they'll try to help you if you need help. Like, that's my hack, quote unquote.
Juliana, welcome to the DTC Podcast. Let's talk about how your beverage brand came about.
Yeah, so it was actually a number of things. One, I've been a giant fizz nerd for many, many years. I run around restaurants and grocery stores and online trying to find new brands and new flavors to try. I'm part of this online secret society of seltzer nerds that all get together and talk about what we love to drink and what we wish we saw on the shelves. So I've just been in that space for a while. One thing that kickstarted this whole thing was I moved from Boston in the States to Toronto in Canada, and I noticed it was kind of a seltzer wasteland. There really weren't a lot of brands that I was used to getting, and so it was a bit of a bummer to go from this wealth of options of drinks to really not that much. And then I started seeing signs of life about a year ago where it was kind of funny. Breweries started doing non-alcoholic seltzers to give their customers some options if they weren't drinking. So started seeing these really great non-alc seltzers pop up, and I was like, oh, this is a cool trend to keep an eye on. And then I started working at tech companies that served e-commerce founders as an audience. So I got to be friends with all these beverage and food people who were taking these ideas in their brains and turning them into physical products. And I was like, I know it's really hard to do, but just so inspiring to see it done and so exciting to see these brands really take off. And so that kind of was maybe 85% of the way to like, I'm going to do this myself. And then the last kicker was I got laid off from my job, which bummer again, but I finally had free time and I had some severance, and it was like, when else in my life am I going to have this free time and money just sitting around? So I decided to start sketching out what I thought a brand should look like in terms of flavors, in terms of vibe, in terms of who my target audience was, and put together a business plan. And then started messing around in my kitchen with like agave and flavor drops and the whole thing. And then I had a talk with my husband. He's like, are you serious about doing this? And I said, yes. And so we agreed that I could use my freelance marketing money to put towards making this a reality. And so then I really started putting investments down and making all the pieces come together. And so I think from sketching it out in a notebook to actually just seeing the cans in a warehouse last week, it's been about a year.
Amazing. That's so cool. Tell me about the seltzer. I'm an amateur. I'm not an aficionado necessarily, but I'm an amateur enthusiast. Is it sugar free? Is there a little sugar? Tell me about the product itself.
Oh man, so you've hit on one of the crossroads I had to address when I was in the formulation stage. So I was at the research and development lab, and for the first round, they give you 3 rounds that are included in the money you give them. So the first round of flavor testing, it was no sugar. I was very adamant that there'd be no sugar because seltzer intrinsically has no sugar. That's the category. So I was like, oh yeah, like bubbly and AHA have no sugar, and LaCroix has no sugar. I'm going up against them. I also have to have no sugar. But the tasting wasn't great. None of the flavors were really popping. And so I was like, they're fine. And I had brought my husband, and he's very opinionated. And he said, this isn't really anything to write home about. Sorry. So then we did another round with no sugar. And then I really noticed that it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. So then my husband's like, all right, devil on your shoulder. What if we put a little bit of sugar? Let's just try it. And then I got the flavors back for the third round. And with the sugar, it just 10x'd what it tasted like. And I said, why am I kicking and screaming against sugar when it actually is doing so much for me wanting to drink this again? And then I thought about it. I was like, why are all these brands tying themselves into knots to avoid sugar, or like worse, putting in fake sweeteners to make up for the fact that they don't want sugar, and then it tastes awful and you don't want to drink it again? Or with no sugar, you don't really know what fruit you're trying to be drinking. So it says something on the label and it just doesn't map to what you're tasting. So I had this aha moment. I had this kind of light bulb of, oh, what if we just had 4 grams, 5 grams? Like, what does that do? Is it worth it? And for me, it absolutely was. So I can't actually technically call it seltzer, so I have to call it a sparkling water because it's got a little bit of sugar, but I think it's so much better for that.
I love that. And there's so much leeway to play. Like, how many grams of sugar are in a regular Sprite or something like that? Or like 40.
A Coke has 39
grams of sugar,
it's
right?
disgusting.
So you can be doing a lot for health by having, much less sugar, but not no sugar. I was just doing, we just had someone sent some rotten, Michael sent some rotten candies to the store or to the office, and they're great because they're not, there's the Smart Sweets that have 0 sugar, which are like, what am I even eating here? And then these have 6 grams of sugar for a package. And it's like, okay, I can manage that. These are delicious. And so I like that approach with sugar. And is it sugar or was it agave, as you mentioned? What is the actual sweetener?
It's sugar. Yeah. My husband, again, was like, okay, but agave is so expensive. Like, why do you need to put agave in it? Can't you just put cane sugar and call it a day? And I said, you're right. I'm being precious about this. Like, let's just not reinvent the wheel here.
What would you say was the biggest learning or mistake that you made in this part of the business, in the product creation side of the business?
I would say calling it seltzer when it apparently is not. Like, I should know what my own category is. I guess technically, you can call it a sparkling water because it's sparkling water plus sugar. If you wanted to get really specific, it is kind of like a soda in that it does have sugar in it. So it could be like a better for you soda. I didn't choose to go that route in terms of the positioning, but it kind of is that weird middle ground of like, it's got a little bit of sugar, so it's not a seltzer. It doesn't have a ton of sugar, so it's not really a soda. And it's not better for you in that it's got like probiotics in it. But it does keep you hydrated, which is better for you, I guess. And it's kind of
enjoyable.
Funny.
Which is what people really want from these things. Ultimately.
Exactly. It's like, you're supposed to be hydrated. They tell you to drink a ton of water every day, but who wants to do that? It's just so boring and flat and annoying. But if I am enjoying drinking it and it's only a little bit, you've got like this giant tankard
Hence the
of water.
BioSteel. It's my
there you go. Like, everyone's got their hacks to make themselves do it. So if the hack is like, I enjoy drinking it because it tastes good, great.
Yeah. Very cool. What was the hardest part about the product side of things? What was the hardest part for you personally in the portion of getting the product ready?
So 2 things, and one was not intuitive at all. It was when I was in my kitchen trying to make the formulas myself, and one of the big strides I did is I actually talked to a flavor house. I ordered some flavors to be sent to my house. It's free, which is mind-boggling to me. Anyone can do this. You just talk to a flavor house and say, hey, can I get a sample of your grapes, for example, your grape flavors, and they send them to your house for free. You just have them there. But I had them in a box in my office for days, and I didn't want to open it because opening it would make it real. Like, I was committing to doing this, and it was terrifying. And I was just like, I kept sitting on them. Like, I didn't even open them. I didn't try them because I was like, now I'm going to have to do something with them. And I don't know what that thing is. I don't know what the next step is. So I just for a week, they just sat there and I stared at them and felt ridiculous. And then once I opened it and started messing around, I kind of kept going from there. But I think just that stumbling block mentally was a big obstacle for me. And then as I got down the rabbit hole of all the different pieces of the e-commerce puzzle that I had to figure out, I think the unit economics has really been my point of this whole thing, because I am not an MBA. I don't have any sort of background in finance. Like, I was an English major in college. Like, this is not my forte or wheelhouse whatsoever. So to this day, you know, I'm going to start working with a fractional CFO to get that part kind of figured out. And it's just been me assembling all of the costs associated with this endeavor, just to give them to someone to say, like, at what point, if ever, is this going to be profitable? Because I can't answer that question.
That CPG beverage game is one where you really do have to. You're not going to have great unit economics out of the gate in a D2C market. Talk a little bit about the unit economics that you can.
Yeah. So one of the really tough things that I didn't think about or know getting into this at all is that there's no set amount of things that you can buy. Everything has its own minimum order quantity, and it's mind-boggling how many variations of things you can purchase. So it's kind of like if you've ever gone to Costco and bought buns and then hot dogs and how they're not the same number. It's kind of like that times a million. So it's like the amount of cans you can buy or have to buy versus the amount of money you have to spend on ingredients and how many ingredients you're going to get, versus the amount of boxes you're going to purchase versus the amount of swag. I mean, that's the thing that I also decided to commit to up front, is like I bundled my first run of this sparkling water with swag. So how much swag you're going to buy. And then everything comes in different bundles and sizes and counts. So it's like, do I go with the lowest common denominator and get just as many, like the lowest of anything that I can get? But then it's like, I can make the amount of ingredients I bought, I can make like 7,000 cans of my green apple, but 10,000 cans of my mango. Even just that is different. But then the minimum order quantity for the can run was like 1,200 cans per flavor. So that's already like completely different. And then when you lay on top like the batches that my co-packer can make, then you're into like other. So I do not ask me to figure that out. I don't have it figured out yet. I mean, I will have to, obviously, but
not quite at that scale yet. So talk about the stage you're at now. You've got the product delivered. Is there a friends and family strategy? Is that, you know, how are you thinking about distribution in these early days?
Yeah. So here's the thing that I decided to do just to make it easy on myself is this is my first time ever in CPG doing this myself. I've, again, no background in this whatsoever. So rather than just buy a bunch of things and hope to God that I can sell a big chunk of inventory, I'd have to pay for warehouse storage in the meantime, and have to worry about things freezing over the winter and have to worry about delivering to US and Canada. I decided to just do a pre-order campaign. And so that just means that people buy it ahead of me making it. And then I know theoretically how much to make and I ship it when it's ready. So I just decided to do the very not very easy, but like the easiest thing that I could do. And since I already had a domain I bought with a Shopify store, it's just a matter of getting like a pre-order app installed so that I can set it up that way. But yeah, so essentially friends and family. I have been talking about doing this for a year. So I have the benefit of having built a little bit in public. So everyone who's been following my journey on Twitter or LinkedIn, I directed to sign up for email updates. So I had a list about 100 people who had said they were interested in learning when this was going to kick off for real. And then I've also been talking to a ton of CPG founders for the past year. So they all knew that this was going to happen.
And your CPG society, or your Seltzer Society there as well, too, right? My
Seltzer Society knew too. Yeah. So got like kind of a nice mix of friends, family, people I've worked with before, people in the CPG space. You know, I've had the benefit too of being in e-commerce tech. So my e-commerce tech peeps also knew about it. So nice mix of different channels, but I think maybe 3 people that I don't know bought, and then everyone else is someone that I already knew.
Nice. And then how about a feedback loop? How is the market reacting to it? Are you getting good feedback on the product?
So I actually don't have the product made yet. I have the cans.
Oh, okay.
I have empty cans sitting at my co-packer waiting for the ingredients to get here. So that's another challenge that I didn't know about ahead of time is turnaround times. So very similar to the fact that every batch of things is a different number, the turnaround time for things is different. So I've got the cans that got to the co-packer, they're empty. I've got the lid sitting on top of the, pallet. And then the big holdup is the ingredients. So here's a fuck up. Like if anyone's like, oh, where have you fucked up? And I don't know if this is a question you're going to ask, but I'm always fascinated by e-commerce fuck ups myself. I thought when the ingredient supplier said 45 days that they meant 45 days, but they meant 45 business days, which is an extra 20 days when you do the calculations. So when I thought that I was going to get this all back and produced and shipped, I told everyone by Thanksgiving, like American Thanksgiving, which is November 23rd, I think. Nope, it's probably going to be more like I get the ingredients on December 5th and then I produce them the next week and then everyone gets them before Christmas. And then I run into the two things I did not want to run into. So one was BFCM and the other one was things freezing on doorsteps. And lo and behold, it's going to be the middle of the winter.
You might need to go new year, new seltzer.
Yeah, or like I retract everything I've decided to do and here's your money back.
Yeah. I think people will be understanding, it's first of all, I want to say the brand. Let's talk about the brand because I think it's it's a good one. Talk about how you came up with the brand identity.
Okay, so I think I went about this completely backwards. I think what you're supposed to do, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is you come up with what it is, like what it is, like the beverage, like what the product is, and then you come up with the name. I came up with the name first, and then I came up with what it is and the positioning. Like, I feel like I kind of reversed it. So as I was thinking about what to call it, I was like, oh, well, it's fizzy. It's up. It's like bubbles float up. And where do I want people to drink it? I want them to drink it at social events or celebrations. And I had this whole thing in my head about not everyone drinks, but like when you think about social events, you think about drinking and you think about alcohol. And it's always like a bottle of champagne or like a glass of wine. Like alcohol is the celebration beverage, right? And why do we have to have that? Can't we have something else? Like, what is there for people who don't want to drink? And so I was like, why can't we celebrate with something else? And of course, water is not going to be super celebratory or fun. So what if we have these drinks that are there as another option that you enjoy drinking, that you have something in your hand, it feels equally as cool as whatever else, and it tastes great and it's not bad for you. So that was kind of the idea in my head. So Balloon was like fizzy, lifting, celebratory, bright, fun. So that's where
simple and
simple.
Chance it's simple and iconic.
Iconic.
Which is good.
It's got its own emoji.
That's a big one.
So that was something that popped into my head.
Soda pun's all day with you. It's great.
Oh, it's not a soda pun. It's a sparkling water pun.
It's a sparkling pun. Sorry. You're right. Super cool. And then, so how did you go about getting it designed? Did you work with a designer that you trusted?
I had never heard of this person before, but I have, if there's one shortcut I could say I've taken, it's just asking other people who they've worked with, who they've liked, and not just like one person, but I'll ask multiple people or multiple channels who they recommend. So this was Startup CPG Slack. I just dropped in there one day and said, hey, does anyone have any designers that they recommend in Canada? And I wanted a Canadian person, so they had local expertise. And so this person, Dan Perella, was recommended to me, and he'd done beverages before in Canada, I think even Toronto regionally. And he had done, I think, primarily spirits, like the spirits category of beverage, but I really liked his portfolio and his rates were not astronomical. So that's what I went with. And I'm really glad that I picked him. He's been amazing to work with, super responsive. And once we had the branding nailed down for the cans, now he's helping me with the packaging. So that's going to be really fun to see that come in the next few days, hopefully.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Then let's talk. What are you thinking right now about your go-to-market strategy as your main move to get cans in hands and sips to lips?
Oh, I love sips to lips. I haven't heard that before. I might have to steal that. Awesome. Thanks, Eric. Sweet. So D2C to start, just so I can own the data and just the customer feedback. I think you were asking earlier, how am I going to gather feedback? And it's going to be, I'm going to try to do like a post-purchase survey once people do have the cans in hand, just to say like, what did you think? Did you like it? I think my challenge is going to be, because it is primarily friends and family, like, are they going to tell me the truth or are they going to tell me what they actually think? because they could just be like, it's great, pat on the head, and it's not. So hopefully they won't spare my feelings. So yeah, I'll gather feedback. I also want to get people who aren't related to me talking to me about it. So I want to do some farmers markets. There's a ton in Toronto. I'm actually part of an Instagram private chat where everybody compares notes on which farmers markets are the best for their CPG products, which is great because you can spend so much money on these ones that have no foot traffic, or they won't advertise, or you have to bring your own everything. And so it's just like a lot of it's not worth the money. So I can kind of shortcut wasting my time or money there. So farmers markets, direct to consumer. I think what I want to do too over the winter is start unlocking retail like little by little. So I want to start in my neighborhood proper where I can literally just walk to the store. So I'm thinking of targeting one bagel shop, one coffee shop, one like healthy food kind of shop, and then hopefully a brewery will want an alcoholic alternative. And so that way I can test the waters, figure out how to sell retailers and like what I need to convince them to do it and what the terms are, because I, again, have never done that. But just get my foot in the water there and then kind of expand from my neighborhood to maybe other areas of Toronto. But I'm going to keep it really, really small for the first few forays.
Pound the pavement, really, like bringing the product to people, getting samples, like from, how does that, what is that, you literally just walk into stores kind of thing and ask to speak to the manager?
Exactly.
Very cool. And you have them try it on the spot?
I bring samples. Get samples if they're there. Just say, hey, do you have 5 minutes to try this? I imagine I might want to have like a sell sheet or something to give them that's like, here's what the price point is. And then if I'm feeling really ambitious, I might try to roll out in Amazon Canada, but I don't know how much work that's going to be, so I don't want to sign up for that. I actually have a 3-month-old baby at home, so there's a lot to do that's not business related, but that is my stretch goal.
Very cool. How do you envision this brand in 3 years from now? In your wildest dreams, where do you envision this brand going?
Erewhon, baby, Foxtrot.
Nice. There isn't a lot of half sweet like options out there. There isn't a lot like, you know what I mean? Or like not half sweet isn't what it is. It's a third or it's just far, far less sugar. And I think like, cause the soda, like so many people drink angry water as I call it. And, and the ones that have no flavor, like they're just so hollow. The ones that like all the different bubblies and all those, they're just so weird, synthetic tasting, right? The sugar probably anchors that flavor a lot.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I want to try at a farmer's market just to see the response, is bring a blindfold and blindfold people and have them drink competitors and say, like, what fruit do you think this is supposed to be? And just see how wildly off they are. Or not. Maybe I'm wrong and maybe everyone knows what it's supposed to be. But I feel like half the time I have to look at the can to know what they're trying to convince me I'm drinking. And then I'd like to try it with mine too, honestly. Like, do I think this tastes like fruit punch? Yes, because I know what it is. But does someone who has never had it before think it tastes like fruit punch?
I was going to ask you mentioned building in public, and I think there's an asymmetrical opportunity for brands to be, putting out this kind of social video content. And I think that particular idea of even just doing guerrilla style taste tests and things where people are blindfolded taste tests, where you get, if you can do it, like, could be some really great content. Like, what are your thoughts on how you might build in public more or take advantage of that opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, because I've never done this before, I think I do have an advantage of like, I know what I don't know, and I know where I'm fucking up, and I don't have all the answers, and I'm the first to admit that, and I've been very upfront with everything I do that I'm an idiot. Like, I'm not an idiot, but like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I think people really relate to that, and for everyone who's getting into this for the first time, like, I'm not so far past the start that I don't remember how hard it is. Like, I'm in it right now. And I think there's a lot of podcasts out there that are like, my first million, or like 5 years later, here's looking back. But you forget the early days or just how you got to the first thousands even at that point, I feel like. So for anyone who just wants to do this, but it doesn't even know where to get started, I think I can put out a lot of content that's like, here's how I got off the ground, like the first year or the first few months even, because I think it's just so daunting, and there's no guidebook I could find online that's like literally here's all the steps in what order, and like here's all the little subcategories of thing you have to pursue. Like, so for example, I wasn't even thinking about trademarks until my friend who's doing a beauty line was like, have you done trademarks yet? And I was like, oh no, I didn't even think about that. Or I was at a founder breakfast the other day and someone's like, oh, have you thought about customs brokers? And I was like, what is that? And I had to Google that. And it's like, there's no sheet that's like checkbox, like you did this, you did this. And so I think there's like a ton of content I could produce even around that I think people, even not in the space, would find interesting. Like I would find that interesting, I feel like, even if I wasn't doing this.
I just think so many people drink soda too. I think content around drinking soda in some capacity too. Like, I think the business stuff is interesting, and I think there is an interesting overlap there. But I like the idea more of just like D2C, to the customer, and just like, because I think I think you're kind of you're bringing a gun to a knife fight in that case, which is really good because sugar is going to taste so much better, and a little bit of sugar is okay. I guess if you don't want to chain drink them as the way that maybe some people drink sodas.
But you could. Okay, so here's the thing: a banana has 14 grams of sugar.
Yeah,
so you could drink at least 3 cans of my sparkling water, and you still wouldn't be drinking as much as a banana's worth of sugar, and you'd be hydrating at the same time. So,
hey, I'm a convert. You'll have to send me some. Maybe we can make it the official drink of D2C. It's going to be tough to beat out. That. If BioSteel goes out of business, then we can do that. But
you're going to find out someone sabotaged their warehouse tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. So So this is the 50K question that we always ask. We ask brands that are a lot more established, but in your case, like let's say, saying you have a product ready to ship, where would you spend that 50,000 at this point? Would you guess?
Vending machines. I would buy my own vending machines. I put them in airports. I put them in universities. Put them in hospitals. Like anywhere anyone needs to drink something that's not bad for you.
I like that. It's a good idea. Really, you'll get the brand out there, become that you sell it and brand it at the same time. Interesting. Would you put your face? You should put your face on it. Like I was just trying to be like GTs, because some of those great folksy brands have done. Yeah, that's a bit much, but
I'll talk to my graphic designer about it.
Nice. I just wanted to ask, you mentioned a few hacks. You mentioned this idea of, well, first of all, you mentioned private groups. The way, private groups for you have definitely been a hack. And then outright reaching out, I assume, on LinkedIn. Anything else to say on shortcuts or things? I consider a podcast to be a great hack or shortcut for generating business for agencies, for instance, or for whatever. It's been this great shortcut to meet people and talk to people. Anything else that you have in that vein when it comes to shortcuts or hacks?
I would say if there's certain people you want to get in front of, one of my hacks, and it's not really a hack because you have to put in the work, is attending webinars that they're part of. If there's anything that they're part of that you can go to, if it's in person or if it's virtual, and then follow up immediately after and say, hey, I caught you, or even a podcast, if they're on a podcast, like find somewhere where they're showing up and then say like, hey, I listened to this or I saw this, great points on XYZ. Like you actually do have to listen and pay attention and take notes, but just follow up and say like, hey, I caught you on this thing, really love what you said about this thing. By the way, I am doing this, like would love your thoughts, or like would love for you to try it or whatever. Like I think this would work with influencers too, is just like follow them, comment on what they're doing, engage with them, and then just kind of drop a little like, oh, like by the way. And then people just love that you're paying attention and have thoughts on what they're doing and are supporting them. And so then they'll try to help you if you need help. Like that's my hack, quote unquote.
That's a great hack. That is really good, because it's like, and you'll stand out from the 99% of inbound other things that you get from other people that don't do that, don't put any work into understanding who you are really, and aren't engaging you in an organic way where you're trying to get attention. That's very cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Juliana, very cool. Thanks for coming on the D2C podcast. We'll stay in touch.
Thanks for having me, Eric. Yeah, I'm excited to listen back to this a year from now in time capsule, mode, and just say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's what I was worried about then, because now I'm in some sort of other weeds.
Yeah, that's right. Well, drop some links here. Where do you want people to follow your journey?
Yeah, I am talking about it on Twitter/X, I guess we're calling it now. So my handle is at Attack of the Text. If you want to follow on social, our social handles are at Water Balloon Co. on Instagram, Twitter, and I've joined TikTok. I have not done anything with it. I am terrified of it. Ask me a year from now if I've done it. It's not soda.
Sorry, seltzer, sparkling water taste test.
You're really
sparkling water
with this.
taste test. Yes, sorry, the technical terms.
Yes, but if you want to see me piloting sparkling water tests with blindfolds at farmers markets on TikTok, at some point I will do it. I promise. Hold me accountable. That's where you can find me.
Send me that link. We'll put it in the newsletter.
Yes, I will do that.
Thanks, Juliana. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at direct-to-consumer, all one word, .co. I'm Eric Dyck, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.